And there I am. I'm out of the bunker. I found a bunker and I've been hiding in the bunker. This is what it looks like. But I'm out of the bunker now. I can see the world again. I can breathe the beautiful spring air that gives me hay fever and allergies. It's awesome. Welcome everybody and happy Monday. Happy Monday, March 30th. I'm so glad that you are spending time with me in this new format. It's awesome. I'm going to try and remember everything. I'm going to try and figure out how to make sure that I click on all the areas that I need to click on. A couple of things that I just wanted to touch on. Well, first of all, I've decided, I don't want to have to put gel in my hair every day. I'm not going to meetings, but I do need to look a little bit presentable at least. So every day I've decided to wear a cap. So I'm going with the USA, USA, USA today. Yesterday I wore a Tottenham Hotspur cap. I'm finally getting a chance to use all the caps that I have in my closet. So that's awesome. Couple things as well to share with you. If you want a shout out like Bob Farnham just got, all you got to do is put a comment in the Facebook thread. So happy Monday to you, Mr. Farnham, and hello, Joe Dumont, Joey, Joseph, Joe to Joe. Good to see you as well. Thank you very much, Bob. I do like my cap. What's nice about this as well, by the way, the fact that I can actually show your comments, which is kind of cool, is the fact that now people that are viewing the video after the fact can actually see the comments as well. It's all part of the actual production. And what I really love about this today is the fact that I'm live on YouTube, I'm live on Facebook. I don't have to produce anything anymore. I can just pretty much take this and distribute it on my various social media channels. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But, I think it's important always to start off with the data, right? Start off with the stats. And here we are, it's Monday, a little bit of sobering. This show, by the way, is going to be, it is going to be somewhat, manic, because the highs will be super high and the lows will be super low. This is just the reality of the world that we're living in right now. So there's going to be some serious stuff, intense stuff, passionate stuff, upsetting stuff, and hopefully there'll be a lot of more stuff that is inspirational, that is motivational, that makes you feel a little bit more optimistic. Keep your head up and get on with the day. But these are the stats at the moment. As of about 30 minutes ago, 750,000 cases. And what I've done is, in parentheses, I'm showing you what yesterday's totals were. So I think it's important to be able to see the numbers and quite frankly, how they're changing. Deaths, 36,211, and that's up from just under 33,000. And of course, the recovered 158,000 versus 146,000 yesterday. In the US, and we'll talk about today, there are about 148,000 cases, just under 2,600 deaths, and just under 5,000 that have recovered. So that's really what's going on at the moment. And look, it is what it is. We got to deal with it, and we got to cope with it, and we got to recognize that this is now the world that we are living in. But let's get to a couple of stories and a couple of things that I think are important, and I'd like to share with you. This is not important. This is me. This is just my little update, which is that I hit 5,000 friends on Facebook. Why should you care? Well, you shouldn't care. You shouldn't care at all. But I have a question for you, which is, I don't know what happens now that I have 5,000 friends. So people can't friend me anymore. So what do they do if they want to access my feed or they want to access my stream? I imagine the answer is they can follow me, but I wouldn't know because I can't follow myself. That would be a little bit weird. So if you aren't friends with me on Facebook, tell me what happens if you actually access my feed. Are you even watching this right now? I hope so, because I don't want to lose anyone, not even one of you. Yesterday, I debuted a new piece, new format for the show, and you're seeing all of these things, the tickers and the titles, and the ability to really bring in a lot more multimedia. I actually had the pleasure, and you can see the different cap I was wearing, of interviewing my sister. Not just because she's my sister, obviously, but because she's an entrepreneur. She owns a cycling studio, a spinning studio in London. And when faced with this idea of closing down the business, as she said, if I close down the business, when she had to stop because people were going and sheltering at home or going on lockdown, she said, I knew that if I shut the business then, I would never open it up again. And she's moved her entire business online now. So now there's a whole cycling Cyclub on demand. And I really do encourage you to watch that video. I'm going to start putting out more interviews with entrepreneurs, with individuals, because I want to share the positivity and the optimism and the wonderful stories of people that are getting on with it and figuring out a way to survive and thrive during this unsettling time. I also published my newsletter article, and the title of the piece, every week I typically write, if I have the time, a thought leadership piece. And this one was called Rosie the Recovered, built and based on the idea of Rosie the Riveter. And I've rebranded her as Rosie the Recovered. And what I've actually done is I wanted to, more importantly, brand the people that are not sick anymore. Because I do believe that it is those people that will actually save us, save the economy, hopefully the immune, that can go out there and rejoin the workforce. And I talk about how that might look and how that might exactly play out. So branding the recovered. Why was that important? Tomorrow I'm actually going to focus on the article in CoronaTV or on CoronaTV. But I want, so many people have had this stigma, this negative stigma of getting sick, of not being able to share that, of feeling embarrassed or humiliated, like they did something wrong. Well, I want to turn that around and twist it, and now turn it into a positive. If you would like to subscribe to my newsletter, there's an easy way. Unfortunately, this is US only. If you text the word CoronaTV to 66866, you'll automatically join my newsletter. And so I just wanted to share that with you as well, and I'll talk about that tomorrow. Okay, what else? I'm not using Zoom, as you can see. I had so many technical issues with Zoom in terms of going from Zoom to Facebook, and also then for some reason it kept kicking me off. And necessity is the mother of invention. That is going to be a common theme on this show, and it should be in your life as well. And so I found something else, but I'm still using Zoom. The after show is still on Zoom. And so from 2:30 to 3 Eastern Standard Time, whomever wants to join me, hang out, ask me questions, comment, disagree with me, or just talk amongst yourselves, you can do that. But I found this to be quite fascinating. Zoom is now valued at 50% more than all the US airlines put together. I don't even know how to process that at the moment, but I did want to share that with you. All right, what else? Well, there's some news at the moment, and there's a lot of news, unfortunately. The Tokyo Olympics have been rescheduled. Instacart and Amazon employees are now suing the company because they don't feel that they're getting adequate protective measures from the company. But yeah, the big news is that the Olympics have now, we knew that they were postponed, but the new date is July 2021. And I don't know how many of you have seen this, but a design and artist rendition of what the Olympic Games logo and brand would look like during this day and age of social distancing. The other interesting news that came out was that Macy's is laying off up to 130,000 employees. 130,000 employees. That's pretty much most of their workforce. I think that demonstrates that this is not just the beginning of the end, but maybe the end for Macy's. It's pretty sad. I mean, it's, you know, I wrote Built to Suck: The Inevitable Demise of the Corporation and How to Save It. You know, I spoke about the death of retail. Unfortunately, this death spiral has been accelerated, maybe irrevocably. And maybe the only way back for these massive behemoth bricks and mortar retailers is to almost accelerate that themselves. It's what I call a heresy, which is to accelerate their closure, but move maybe to not just online, but try and figure out a way to adopt a new business model or pivot their business, if at all. And unfortunately, it looks pretty grim for them. Other things in the news, Dyson, you know, the vacuum cleaner, probably they don't describe themselves that way, produced a ventilator. And, you know, they responded to the challenge, and the founder of the company produced a ventilator. There was a lot of good sentiment about this at the time in the UK, you know, that at least it would look stylish. And for those of you that have, you know, that own Dyson vacuum cleaners, hair dryers, etc., they are pretty well designed. But actually, when looking at a lot of the comments about this online and on Twitter, there's a lot of negative sentiment against Dyson, relating to Brexit, relating to moving, going offshore, I think going into Singapore, and a lot of feeling in the UK right now, people are hurting, people are angry, is that there was another ventilator company that should have gotten the business or contract or received more visibility and recognition from the government. So unfortunately, there's a little bit of a bittersweet aspect to Dyson pivoting themselves and coming out with a ventilator. I would have liked this to have been a much more positive story. So speaking of which, yesterday we heard in the US that the guidelines, the federal guidelines with respect to social distancing, not staying at home, not shelter in place, and not lockdown, which I've discussed before, but have moved from the 14-day original estimate to April 30th. And the president had come out and said that he'd hoped that all the churches would be full on Easter, and we would be out of this. And clearly that hasn't happened at all. You know, and I wanted to comment on this because if there is a common theme in today's show, in fact, today's show is called Numbers. We looked at the numbers at the beginning. I looked at my numbers with respect to Facebook. We were looking at dates and numbers as well. And then there was this tweet yesterday. And I actually, believe it or not, I actually thought that the president's Twitter account had been hacked, because I just thought there is no way that he would have tweeted this. President Trump is a ratings hit. Since reviving the daily White House briefing, Mr. Trump and his well, he was quoting an article, right? And his coronavirus updates have attracted an average audience of 8.5 million on cable news, equating that with a season finale of The Bachelor. There's something really concerning about a tweet like this, when the real numbers that are out there, the real numbers that we should be focusing on, are clearly the numbers of people that are sick, and unfortunately the numbers of people that are dying. Well, Mr. President, I have a number for you. That number is 2,977. And I'm wondering how many people on the Facebook feed right now can tell me what that number is. So I'd like to kind of pause for a second, you know, and see, do you know what that number is? So I would be very, very curious if you know what that number is. So I'll take a moment and give you a minute or two to comment, because this is an important number, maybe the most important number right now. It's not US deaths, Mark. I mean, it is US deaths, but actually it's not really US deaths, because the people that make up these deaths were not just US citizens. They were not just Americans. They, in fact, were people from many, many different countries and nationalities. Of course, if you figured it out, That number is the number of people that perished in 9/11. On 9/11, just under 3,000 people. And I did not include the hijackers in that number, of course. We're most likely going to eclipse that number this week. We're gonna blow that number away, unfortunately. Indeed, we've been talking about a scenario now, a best case scenario or a good case scenario of 100,000 deaths in the US. Mr. President, I say this with respect. Let's focus on those numbers. Let's focus on the real numbers at hand, because this is what we're dealing with right now. And I saw this tweet. You wanted a reality show host as president? Well, now you're on Survivor. We're on Survivor. Now, look, I don't want this show to be a political show. But I've said to you throughout this process that I want to keep it real. I've said to you throughout this process that I just want to be honest with you. And I want to tell you what's on my mind. And if I'm happy, if I'm sad, if I'm angry, if I'm mad, I'm not perfect. But I just want to be able to share with you what I'm feeling. And maybe what other people are feeling too. Because this is the number now that we looked at this and we said, in our wildest dreams, in our worst nightmares, did we ever think that this would happen? And now, as every other record, it has been shattered, and every other unprecedented milestone has been completely changed forever. So I'd like to be a little bit positive now. And I'd like to be able to kind of talk about a couple of other things that maybe we should be thinking of. One, we need to be thinking of quite clearly, we need to be thinking of social distancing. And I saw this the other day, and I wanted to share it with you because it is, data visualization is so important. The ability to use graphics and design to bring data to life is so important. So this is a data visualization of the power and the importance of social distancing. Let me play that for you right now.
We wanted to see the true footprint social gatherings like spring break beach crowds could really have on our society in the face of a global pandemic. To do so, we started with the big picture, powering our engine with billions of anonymized location data points from mobile devices across the globe. Using tectonics, we can then zoom in on specific regions. Here, we focus specifically on just one beach in Fort Lauderdale during the month of March. Again, each of these data points shown on the map corresponds to a unique mobile device.
Oops. Let's see what happened there. I'm just going to hit a little bit of a refresh, and let's just see if that works again for us. So I knew things were kind of were almost too good to be true. And as always, as they say, if things are too good to be true, they usually are. Well, what I'm going to do is I am going to do a quick little force quit for you, and then I am going to reload, and let's just see if it comes back as well. It's definitely worth seeing, and it's definitely something that I would want to show you. So if you bear with me for a second, I will bring it right back up, and I will share the screen with you. It might have been because I was trying to look at a different application at the same time. But learned my lesson, didn't I? No, it doesn't look like it wants to come back. I tell you what I'll do is I will show it for you a different day. So we'll go back to me for a second. But yeah, so what this was actually showing was the importance of social distancing, meaning they actually showed people on the beaches in Fort Lauderdale. Remember when all the people were on Miami beaches, frolicking along, having the best time in the world, and then what happened next? They got on planes, they got on trains, they got in automobiles, and they moved out back to their homes, whether that was in Florida, whether it was getting on flights and going back to New York City, spring break, and they spread the coronavirus. They were either asymptomatic, they didn't know that they were carrying the virus, and as we know, 4 out of every 5 people in China that contracted this disease got it from people who didn't know that they were sick at the time. So a very, very powerful thing. If you're talking to people that are pushing back, that still haven't quite recognized the severity of this, well, then that visualization is going to help you. And obviously, I'm not able to show it to you today. I guess the tab crashed, but I can do it another time. So don't worry about it. I will be back better, stronger than ever before. So there are a couple of other things that I wanted to share with you today. And as always, your comments are valued. Your comments are needed. I want you to feel like you're a part of the show. I want you to tell me if you like the format, if you like the multimedia format. That's awesome. I'll do more of that. I want to bring more interviews and more people onto the show as well. I just want to keep mixing it up for you and bringing you something that's valuable. Ultimately, this is viewer and listener driven in the sense that you can totally tell me what you want more of. And I'm just going to keep like experimenting. There are another 2 things that I just really wanted to discuss with you in the time that we have left today. And, you know, the first is I want us to take a moment, spare a thought for people that live in small places and spaces. The high-rise apartment in New York City. Think about New York City for a second. You know, New York, so good they named it twice. The greatest place in the world, the epicenter of the world, Times Square, and now the epicenter of the coronavirus. People working, you know, the working girl, the devil wears Prada, all of the prototypical, stereotypical ways of thinking about New York City. But these are people typically living the life, you know, dreaming the dream, living in small apartments with high rent. And now they're confined to those apartments. No yards, no lawns, no ability certainly an ability to get in an elevator. Can you really? You have to. How are you going to get groceries? But even the logistics of being able to get in an elevator and then see somebody else coming into the elevator. If you live in New York, if you've been going through this, if you live in a small apartment in a high rise, you know, please send me a comment. Let me know how it's been. How hard has it been? What happens? What levels of anxiety are there when you actually get into an elevator and see somebody coming? Do they then wait? Do you go down the stairs? I suppose you do. What if you live on the 43rd floor? How do you get through that logistic? But at the same time, think about being confined to this tiny space. I guess I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I have a yard, that I have a lawn. I'm lucky that I can go for a jog and a run on the deserted streets in suburbia. I mean, you know, that's a really good point. Terry just said, what if you're a senior? Can you imagine? They can't walk. They can't walk up and down flights of stairs. They need to use the elevator, but also how do they get from even to go and see a doctor from one place to the other? Now more than ever, we should spare a thought for them. You know, I was listening to a podcast on NPR and Fresh Air, and the person who was actually putting the story together, she said, one thing that I've learned through this process is that when you live in a small apartment, it's even smaller during a time like this. And that's can you imagine living alone or living with a partner? But what if you live, as many do, with kids? What happens if you live with an elderly parent? What happens if you live with a pet? How difficult it must be to be almost crammed into that studio or junior, what they call a junior 4 or even a 2-bedroom. And I've just been really outlining living the life, the high rise in New York City. What about living in low-cost housing? The projects. What happens if you're actually living in a really, not even a small space, but a space where you feel claustrophobic, where you feel like you almost need to get out, break out, that you're in prison, because this is essentially a kind of a prison that we're in right now. So spare a thought for them. And if you know someone who lives there, maybe, just maybe, that little bit of empathy can go a long way, to just send them a text message or just, a WhatsApp, and just say, thinking of you, and thinking, if for no other reason, then you must be going out of your mind. Cabin fever, and then some. So I just wanted to kind of share that idea with you as well. I know that today was kind of a little dark, maybe, probably, yeah. I know that today, I went into the political realm and critiqued, rightly so, a ridiculous tweet about ratings, about a press conference, whose sole goal and objective is to get the word out. Not just to get the word out, but inspire confidence, positivity, optimism, the ability for us. That glass is not half empty right now. It's completely empty, and the glass is shattered. And we need that inspiration. And we've got to stop getting distracted by all the stuff that actually just doesn't mean anything. Haven't we learned that already? And yes, Mr. President, it begins with you. The buck stops with you. You are the leader, for better or for worse, legitimately or illegitimately, it doesn't matter. Lead us or step aside. Lead us. We need the leadership. We need one voice. We need one message. And then everybody needs to spread that message, the same message. Washing hands, hygiene, social distancing, or as I like to, as many people are saying, physical distancing. We're not socially distancing. That's why I can say hi to Michelle right now. Hi. We may be physically apart, but that doesn't mean socially we're apart. Jan, I can show you the whole comment. Jan said, as grateful as I am for my family video calls, happy hours with friends, virtual happy hours, right? I probably have to go like that, right? Virtual art lessons with kids from around the country. These 2 personal accounts from the daily podcast were a wake-up call for me. Well, I would have to go and check it out. Maybe I will. And, possibly I'll come back to you tomorrow, Jan. I'll check those 2 out and respond to them on the show tomorrow. This is our social time. We are not socially distancing. Well, we might be physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, we are close. We are together. We are connected. And remember that. And that's why I'm doing this every day. And that's why I'm going to continue to do this. This is CoronaTV. And it's giving me daily purpose. And it's giving me, and I'm putting more and more time into it. And yes, there was a little technical glitch today. I feel like there's never going to be a day when there isn't one technical glitch. But yesterday the comments weren't working. Guess what? Today they are. Happy days. Happy days. Today was a good day. Today was a victory. And now, as we do every single day, if you haven't yet, come join me on the Zoom. Doesn't matter whether 1 person shows up or 10. You can see the URL. You can probably see the URL above on Facebook. We're going to move over to Zoom, and it's just an opportunity for us to hang out and talk about the stuff that counts. Hey, Jeff, what will you do once Corona goes away? Will you rename and continue on? I'll tell you tomorrow, or if you come on the Zoom, I'll tell you now. Guys, Have a great Monday. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And remember, I love you.